Lila here, and before you jump into this episode, I wanted to just say really quickly that this conversation is a little bit more out there than most conversations you're probably used to having. Go ahead and take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and understand that there are many, many ways of looking at the world. These conversations are meant to get you thinking and experiencing things differently so you can find your path to health and happiness. If you have questions, comments, or want to discuss any of these topics further, we would love to hear from you. Go ahead and reach out in the comments or email me at hello@tvnhc.com. I hope you enjoy. I'm Lila, and welcome to another episode at the Virtual Natural Healing Clinic, where we're having conversations to help people on their path to finding health and happiness. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Denise. Denise is a medium, and do you like to call yourself an intuitive healer?
Yeah, you could say that. I would say
Okay.
intuitive healer.
And an intuitive healer, because I feel like the word medium doesn't do justice, but I'm really excited to have a conversation with you because I think you have some really interesting and unique insights into navigating the world and our beings and our spirits and all these things. So thank you for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. I'm actually a little excited. I was a little nervous when I had that countdown. 5, 4, 3. I felt my heart going like, oh,
Showtime.
showtime, you're on. And
Right?
I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I want to start by giving you an opportunity just to explain the work you do, because I think the word medium can mean a lot of different things or it gets utilized in a lot of different ways. So tell me a little bit about how you work and what it means to be a medium and kind of the unique gift you bring to the world.
Okay. So basically, we'll start first with what the difference is between a medium and a psychic. And a medium is basically one who has all the psychic abilities, but they can communicate to loved ones that have passed on. We communicate with the dead. Um, and that's kind of like the main difference between a medium and a psychic. And then it's how do I explain my work? My work is my group is basically my group is when all else fails, you come to us. When everything else is just not working. We're like the last resort. But basically Paracelsus he was a physician back in the 1600s. And he has a saying, and I'm going to paraphrase it. And it was that if you have a seen world, why would there not be an unseen world? So if you have hot and cold, if you have hot, you have cold. If you have damp, damp, you have dry. There's always an opposite. As above, so below. That's the Hermes Trismegistus. So one of the rules. Um, and so you have to have this unseen world. And what I discovered, I was a nurse in the medical field, and I always felt like there was stuff that wasn't being addressed by the medical field. I felt like there was a lot of things that, like anxiety, depression, that was external of that person. You know, why is someone on medications for years and they're still dealing with anxiety? Should that not, or depression, should that not be being sought and being in therapy for all those years? Should that not be going away? So I started getting jaded with healthcare. And then when we had, 2020 happened, I basically pieced out in healthcare and said, I can't participate anymore. And it started me on this journey of trying to figure out what is all of this? Like, why are we sick? Why does it continue even when we are supposedly taking medicine to heal us? So I started going into sound healing using tuning forks, which is more specific than a sound bath. Sound baths, people usually associate when I say sound healing, they immediately think of laying on the mat, and having the tuning, the woman walking around the singing bowl or playing gongs and stuff like that. And that's not what my work was. I was more very specific with using tuning forks. And I was doing tuning forks using sound frequencies to re-regulate someone's nervous system. And I found there's a gentleman named John Byru. He's up in New York. He's like one of the tuning forks guru, if you will. He's been doing it for years. And he has a whole protocol for people, for depression, for anxiety, for insomnia, all using tuning forks to regulate the nervous system. So I found that really fascinating, and I started going into that work. And then I found myself, I had a couple of people with traumas that would come into me. And what I was taught was we have a tuning fork there's a series of tuning forks. That works with the brain waves. And there's the alpha, beta, theta, and delta forks. And what you would do is you would take the theta and you would drop the person down into the theta wave through visualization and stuff like that. And then you would have them reenact the accident, but you would do a different outcome. So I had a friend who had a really bad accident. He was driving his minivan. He got hit so hard that the axle in the minivan was found in the field. It was a pretty intense accident. So he had been going through like a year where he was unable to sleep because he kept reliving that trauma. All, and he was on medications. They gave him sleeping meds. He was seeing a therapist. And I said to him, I said, can I just try? Can we just try this on you? Let's just try the tuning forks. And he was open to it. He's like, sure. So, I'm doing the theta, giving him the theta wave. I'm doing the visualization, and we take him from point A to point B without any incident. And then that was the first night he had slept without any memory of that accident. And it got me thinking that, oh my gosh, if we can eliminate that within 3 minutes, he had been a year with a therapist, a year on medication that he didn't need, that was creating other issues for him. And I was like, whoa. So then I started thinking to myself, what was that? Like, what is this? And then I started delving into more of the unseen world. I started going into things that influence us that we can't see. Like I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and we have a lot of homeless people. And we had a couple friends visiting us, and I guess I just never thought about it. But we were walking by this homeless guy, and he's having a full conversation with someone. People are like looking at him like, oh, he's just mentally ill. There's problems with, whoa, he's just, schizophrenic or something. And that's what our friend said. He's like, wow, he's like mentally, woo. And I looked and I could see these two beings that he was actually conversing with. So I'm like, no, he's not schizophrenic. He's not mentally ill. He's literally talking to someone. So that started me thinking of more deeply into when he said the word schizophrenic, it got me thinking that, whoa, what if, all this mental illness is something external and not internal? And that started my deep dive into something called SRT work, which is spirit release therapy. And then went from there, we started getting tougher. And I work with a group of mediums. So when we go into a session, it's not just one medium, there's multiple of us, and it's kind of like a peer review, so you don't end up creating a story that's not, when you go as a medium, everything is symbolism, archetypal, or metaphors. And when you go into the clients, it's basically based on that medium's understanding and their tools and the knowledge that that medium has. So by having multiple mediums, that allows us to check with each other. Hey, I'm seeing, we had a client that, he was told like he was part of Adolf Hitler's soldiers by another medium. Totally wrecked this kid. Like he was beside himself. So when he came to us, he started telling me the story, and he's like, I'm part of Adolf Hitler's soldiers. I'm carrying all this karma. And I'm like, no, 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 you're not. So when we went in, what we understood was we saw the Adolf Hitler, what this other medium, a previous healer, had seen, but it was an archetype. So he was carrying the archetypal, which is Carl Jung's. He says that we have it's like a personality, if you will, that we all carry. I think he says that there's 12 main um archetypes that we have. And basically, that's what this was kind of this boy's, I should say boy, he was in his 30s, man. But hey, I'm in my 50s. I'm allowed. I could call him a boy. But anyway, what we discovered was that it was the archetype that he was carrying. So by working with a group of mediums, we can decrease. So we don't traumatize someone by saying, oh, hey, this and this. But So what we discovered was, as we were going along, we were getting harder and harder patients. More patients that required more of the spirit release work, more than just, oh, you have an earthbound on you. Oh, earthbounds are souls that haven't crossed over yet. Dark force entities, which would be like, it it could be some people like we classify demons separately from dark force entities. But it's that collection of beings. And we started all of a sudden going back even further and further and deeper into our clients and starting to read the story. So it wasn't just about, oh, you have a dark force entity on you, we released it, it's done. Our work, it does involve contracts and karma, but it goes into such a deeper, deeper level than that. And then yeah, it's been a very trippy ride. It really makes me I'm so thankful I'm no longer in nursing because working with the unseen worlds, it gives me a lot of information that my mind is blown away that half of this stuff we're told is actually influenced from the unseen world.
You've told me so many stories, and I've actually got to see how you work firsthand, and I think it's just like so fascinating. And I'm sure it sounds woo-woo to some people, but I think there's a really interesting intersection about the work that we both do.
Hmm.
Um, because there's this point where I don't lead with this, but I believe all disease is spiritual in nature. And where you're coming in, like somebody might have, dark force entities on them or something like that. I get to look at why are this person's boundaries weak in allowing this to happen? And how do we shore up the physical so the mental and spiritual can kind of mirror that? And you're like, how do we shore up the spiritual so the physical can mirror that? So it's really interesting because it's different entry points that I think have similar outcomes. And it's just, it fascinates me. And I know there's things that I come across in my work where it calls for something like the work you do. And I know there's things that you come across in your work that the cause or calls for a little bit more of a different entry point, and it blows my mind. It's so
We,
cool.
I didn't really realize, so not to go too deep into this, but I had you and I had talked, and how I met Lila was, um, back in October, I was psychically attacked. And people would be like, "Oh my God, psychic attack." It wasn't, you'll find that there's a reason for everything. And that psychic attack, was it, oh, it's horrendous at the moment I was in it, but there's always a positive. It's all about our perceptions. And what it taught me was that I protected my I protected my energy body, but I didn't understand, I didn't fully understand in the spirit. Okay, in the spiritual community, we have this whole process of grounding. This is going to get a little woo woo for people, but we'll get woo woo here.
Who cares?
Who cares? But so this would be like earth grounding, like people saying walking barefoot on the earth, stuff like that. But in the energy field and in the energy community and the spiritual community, what we do is we visualize light coming in from creator, coming down, and then a lot of people visualize like roots going into the earth, connecting to the inner mother, and then and pulling that grounding energy upwards to ground our bodies. For me, it was always I remember, okay, this is gonna sound incredibly woo-woo, but I was sitting there one day. I'm an air sign, so, I'm like, I can't ground to save my life, like, I'm horrible at it. I went and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to ground myself, and I'm like trying and I'm visualizing my roots going down all the way down to the center of the earth and plugging myself into her and then bring the energy upward. And all of a sudden, I'm clairaudient, clairvoyant. Clairvoyant is the ability to see, and then clairaudient is to hear. And all of a sudden, I saw and heard the words, "Who are you?" And I was like, "What do you mean, who am I?" And it was like, "What are you?" I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Energy body?" And I was like, basically, and all of a sudden it was like, I realized I was visualizing myself as a tree and not as an energetic body. So, because it was like, you're not a tree. Why would you put yourself in that frequency or energy of the tree? Because you're not the tree. And all of a sudden it was like, I had this moment of like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm an energetic body. So then I started grounding myself with the earth, looking at the earth itself as an energetic body. And once I did that, all of a sudden my grounding it improved so much. Just that simple little switch of an idea and or thinking, I should say. But all of that, and I have a really strong energetic body, like I'm heavily shielded because of the work that I do and all. But I had another medium tell me that you don't have boundaries. And when she said that to me, I got pissed. I was like, I have plenty of boundaries. What are you talking about? I've got tons of boundaries, man. I don't understand. And it wasn't until I met you and I reached out to you because I was being drawn to start addressing things in my physical body. And you made the comment to me as you were sitting there, you said, you don't have a physical boundary. And I was like, what? I was like, wait a second, go back, Lila. What'd you just say? And you said, you don't have a physical boundary. This is during you were assessing me. And at first I immediately was like, my ego steps in and is like, bullshit. Did I say that? Bullshit. And I was like, "What?" And then when you started explaining to me, I actually think that I sat on this for a little while. And I actually think that even though I'm doing all the grounding work that we talk about in the community, like in the spiritual community, people do breath work, they do meditation, they do, the visualization and stuff, the grounding. But all that does is work on the inner body. It doesn't actually do the physical. It's not really doing the physical. And I'm not talking about eating healthy. Like, yes, that's part of it, but this was on another level that you were trying to explain to me. And I had this moment of, oh my God. Because in the community, everyone's like, oh no, I drink spinach and kale smoothies and I'll do salads. And you think you're doing the nutrition part of the body, but you're not really. The messages that I was receiving was I wasn't creating a presence in my body, in my physical body, and that's 2 separate things. And when you put me on that ashwagandha, whew, boy, oh boy, did I like
We're back, baby.
I was like, "Holy crap, I didn't realize I'd been so long up here." And when you started talking to me about all of that and I started doing what you recommended, wow, wow, that was life-changing, I have to say.
I love it. Well, so it's really interesting because one, I think the work that you do and the work that intuitive people, clairvoyant people, mediums do, it requires them to be really untethered, right? Like we've talked
Mhm.
about this.
Yeah.
Everything you're doing is you're using it like you want to be in your ether element, and that's a very ungrounded, very light element. It's the opposite of everything that holds us down and grounds us. And so actually, I find breathwork and meditation to be ungrounding because they promote a lot of that ether element, a lot of that air
Mhm.
element. And so, a lot of people that have really big meditation practices, really big breathwork practices, or like I said, do the work you do, I actually find that they have all these physical issues that come with it because everything gets tipped a little too far in that air and ether out of balance arena.
I Yeah, I would agree. I there's in the I think that there's a lot of and I'm probably gonna get people mad at me when I say false teachings. And the more and more that I start to, Rudolf Steiner, he's an anthroposophist to that, and he used to say that everyone needs to create at least 12 understandings of one thing because by creating 12 different at least 12, minimal, obviously, as long as you have multiple understandings of one thing, it allows you a higher perspective. So you get pulled out of all the emotional, ego driven stuff. And then it allows you to look at it from a deeper perspective. And the more and more that I'm creating these understandings, I'm finding more and more false teachings. Like I was sitting there and I struggled with what you said about physical boundaries. And then when they said, oh my God, and my guides came through and they were like, it's about it's creating a presence in the physical body. And I thought to myself, just what you said, the breath work, and well, what about the breath work and meditation people? And they were saying that's the inner body, that's the energetic body, like, when you just said that about ether, about needing more air, well, I just had an aha moment with you. I feel like I always have aha moments with you. It's like I'm connecting dots when you and I talk. But yeah, wow, that makes perfect. Why my God, because I've never been drawn to the breath work. I do the inhale and the
Mm,
exhale
sure.
to kind of settle my settle myself. But I've never been guided to do like this breath work that, 20 minute, 30, whatever people do. A meditation. Oh my God, I'm a Gemini. I can't meditate or crap. So, but I've never really been guided, maybe a couple of 5, 10 minutes just to kind of settle into my body, like just being. But meditation, I've never been drawn to. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you've never been, well, you're not. Well, you're not part of the spiritual if you don't meditate. But I think, I just think like you're right. You can be pulled too much up here by doing that.
Well, and I love that you get I get to connect dots for you because I actually think that's my gift. Like it's not educating, it's like connecting things for people, seeing the patterns, and that's what I love doing. So I thank you.
Mhm.
But I'm so glad you brought up false teachings because that is exactly where I wanted to go, especially after hearing you talk about the visualizing yourself rooting down because that's common. Like that's
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
you hear people say like get grounded, visualize yourself at the roots, and what I have found is I got to a point in my spiritual work, my health work, my herbalist work where it's like everything is true and nothing is true. Like it is all
Exactly.
so nuanced. Like I can't even sit here and say breath work is good, breath work is bad because like the context matters, and any tool we're talking about I think can be good or bad, and it
Yeah.
actually gets it's this place of like life gets kind of confusing. Like it's hard to figure out what's true and what's wrong and what's right because like it's all true. It's all not true. It's all like it's just paradoxical. And so when we go out on the internet and we listen to people in the spiritual communities and you say false teachings, I agree. I think there's a lot of information out there that's being presented that is missing context and nuance, and maybe it's right a percentage of the time, but it's not like blanket advice that works for everybody. Some people might need to get grounded in a certain way, other people might need to get less grounded. It's all so individual. And so I was wondering if you could speak on a little bit of like what you see in the spiritual community, like with the false teachings. Because if it's anything like the health and wellness and nutrition and herbal communities, like it's a hot mess out there. It's so just impossible to make sense of as a person.
Yeah, I think that oh gosh, where do I begin? Because I actually this is another peeve of mine as well. Because I feel like you were saying, like there's truth and then there's not, and everyone has a different reality. We all create our own reality based on our own perceptions and of how we're looking at things and stuff. So I think it's more about creating that balance, because when we start to tip, and I find that in my line of work, the big thing right now is shadow work and trauma work, and people are like, oh, I've been spending a year doing my shadow work. Oh my God, and the trauma and da da da. And I'm listening to him. I'm like, you don't have to. Why are you creating your own suffering? And that seems to be the big thing right now in the spiritual community is the shadow work and this trauma. And what I'm finding is that some people actually they're actually creating an imbalance in their life because and sometimes these shadows and traumas are being created because the brain will, like, as for example, like when I first started doing my mediumship work, I felt intensely pressured. It was my ego. But I felt like when I had a client there that I had to perform, right? And what I discovered was happening was my brain would give me a story because I felt that pressure and I'm like scrambling, give it to me. It's like a kid in school, I need the answer. Oh, I just gotta, what's the answer? What's the answer? What's the answer? And I realized within, I think it's like my second or third client, what was happening was that I was actually creating it because my brain was supplementing, if you will, giving me information that wasn't really actually there because I had this need or desire to perform or to do something. And I think that a lot of these traumas or shadows is that your brain's going to provide you. It's going to create stuff for you. If you want it that badly, it's going to create. But I find that um, I had a client in Vietnam who actually got stuck in her mind because she was so in shadow. She had created this imbalance with the shadow and trauma work that she started tipping the scale. And there does come a point where you actually get lost in your mind because at that point your mind takes over and you lose the whole connection to your heart. And you do that saying, what is the saying, lost in your mind or lost in your head or something like that. That's literally what she did. And she couldn't get herself out of it. So to me, I think that's a false teaching. I think that if there's something that's meant to be worked on, don't worry, it's gonna come up. That's how this world works. If you're meant to work on something, it will come through. I this is a really huge peeve of mine is when people go to healers and the healer may say to them, oh, oh, I think I think I think something happened with you and your grandfather. And this person has no memory of this. This person has no memory. And the healer saying it was sexually abuse. And the person's like, really? Wow, I didn't know that. I don't have a memory of that. But then what they do is they take that on as an identity. Now, what that medium could have been seeing might not have actually been a form of rape. What this rape is one of the most, if I was to look at it as a medium, that would symbolize to me one of the greatest moments of powerlessness. So when a healer sits there and says, oh, I think you were raped by so and so, and you have no recollection of it, that tells me that there's a high chance that that's being a symbol, it's being a metaphor, it's not to be taken verbatim, like as
Mm-hmm.
an actual event. What it's showing you is that something the grandfather may have created this powerful lack of powerlessness that would be almost as if he raped that person physically when he didn't touch that person at all. And then that starts the whole, oh my gosh, I'm a victim, I'm this, and then that's where I think a lot of the false teachings the shadow as trauma will actually throw you into an imbalance of victim, archetypal
Yeah.
victim. And then good luck trying to get out of that. And a long story short, in a nutshell. Sorry, that was a long
No,
nutshell. That was a
that's
very big
okay.
nutshell.
Well, it makes me think about how Ayurveda talks a lot about the mind and how our mind generates 1,000 thoughts a second and they're opposites. Like our mind is just a thought factory and it's constantly creating, and we can easily latch on to any of these thoughts and create story around it. And the other thing I think that happens is we have very imperfect recall of memories. And every time we recall a memory, our recollection of that memory actually gets worse.
Yes.
And so we're sitting there, we're recalling, and eventually like the memory that we have is so distorted that it's so far from the truth, but that's what we get wrapped up in or, like you said, identify with. And I'm really glad you brought up trauma work because it is very popular.
Mm-hmm.
I've dabbled in a little bit of the childhood trauma work, and I found myself like I didn't feel good when I did it. Like
Mm-hmm.
why am I going digging? I don't have these problems, I don't have this issue, and I'm gonna go dig for it, and then I'm gonna be in that state that I used to be in as a kid, and then like I can't use my adult tools when I'm in that childhood trauma triggered state. So I love your philosophy of don't go digging. If it's meant to come up, it will come up.
Right. Well, if you think about it, I think the reason why I think that's a false teaching is because it keeps you locked in the past.
Yes.
It doesn't keep you present. It's another the way I look at it as it's a false teaching because the whole purpose, I think, well, in my reality, let's put it that way, I think our main goal is to be present. And if we are doing all this shadow work and all this trauma, from childhood, what are we doing? I think that can create a heaviness in us that we're not understanding because we're going into past energy and
Mm-hmm.
we have to remain in this energy forward and we have to you know um when we delve into the past, I used to think to myself, oh my gosh, I don't remember anything from my childhood. I don't remember anything. I have bits and pieces. And I thought, oh, something must have, and I did. Did have some major things that happened to me, and I thought, oh, maybe that's what affected my memories, right? I had amnesia because I blocked this out, and that's what we're taught is that, oh, you must have blocked out stuff because you sustained something that was a trauma or something, so you must have blocked out the age of 6 or 7 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But has anyone ever bothered to think that maybe that if this world, if our life is just experiences and lessons, that maybe you learned that experience or that lesson and it's no longer needed. So it's a clean slate. It's gone. Maybe that's why we don't retain memories of childhood because we've learned. And now why are you going to hang in that energy of kindergarten and second grade when now you're here? You're like, 18, 19. You no longer need that energy, that memory. So, it took me a moment when I started thinking about that because I used to wonder, oh my God, something must have really horrific happened to me. Why do I not remember my childhood? And then all of a sudden it hit me that no longer needed it. If you don't need a memory, it's clean, it's gone. You're like a computer. Why are you gonna hold all that stuff? Why are you gonna hold all that? Your hard
Yeah.
drive is gonna get bogged down. You just naturally process it and release it. It's no longer there. And I think that going back to that trauma, it's again, it's a false teaching to keep you locked in the past instead
Yeah.
of the present. And we're so in today's world, I think that we are so it's like almost like going uphill in mud, because they whatever this is around us doesn't want us to live in the present. It wants us to be fearful about our future, our 401ks, how we're gonna live, da 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 da. So it keeps us locked in the future and fear because the future is all about fear because it's always about, well, what if this happens or that happens? And then you've got the past, the shadow, the archetype, the traumas, the victim, blah blah blah, and go to a therapist for a year and keep yourself locked up in the past, and instead of being present. And that's, I think, is the hardest thing for a lot of people because of all this other
Yeah.
stuff, this
Well,
false teachings and stuff. Sorry.
no, no, you jogged some thoughts for me. And I mean, I think at the end of the day, like the two things that get us on the path of health and happiness that keep us there are awareness and presence, which, like you said, are very hard to do with the pull of, we have a whole society created around. Let's like, I just can't get over insurance, right? Like we have health insurance, we have car insurance, we have home insurance,
Oh,
we have
it's
pet
even
insurance.
my
Like,
age and it's $3,000 a month.
oh my gosh. Well, I'm just like, we are working so hard to like possibly fund a tragedy in the future. Like, what
Right.
is that?
What
That
if?
is
And what if?
so
Yeah.
crazy to me. Like, but that's like, think about how many families, like dual income parents, work two jobs to have all the insurance, right? Like, we are just
Yeah.
working for some false sense of stability or safety in the future that I don't think truly exists. But yeah, our whole society really is built on the what if, or how showing us how we're inadequate or whatever to keep us feeling a certain way about our futures. And then we sit there and dig up the past and nothing is focused on the present. Like
Or we're
nothing.
penalized. I think it was Obamacare. We got penalized. Like if you don't have insurance, like now in your taxes, you got penalized. I remember my son being like, I didn't have health insurance for a year and now I'm penalized. Like he's like, and I owe, because I said, how did you owe money? And he's like, because I didn't have health insurance and they penalized me at the end of the year because I never got it. And I'm like, oh, it drives me nuts. It's like, yeah, yeah, and then that just makes me comes to me that there's so many hands in the deeper pocket in Western medicine that just yeah, and I think kind of circling back around to that, creating that presence in the physical body. It's all that other stuff as well that pulls you away from creating that presence in the physical. Um, so yeah, I have to say I was nervous. I was nervous when he started saying, "We're gonna ground you." I was like, "What happened to my ability, Lila? What's gonna happen to me?" And I want people to know that are intuitive out there that it's this is really big and this is not talked about in the spiritual community. And this is why I'm so thankful for you and Your ability to, I mean, most people would be like, "Oh, you're a medium? You're intuitive?" And they would kind of look at you like strange and just be like, "Okay, well, this is what this person's crazy. But we're gonna do this and this and this and this, and here you go." But when we were sitting there talking and coming up with a plan of care, how we were going to address this. I don't even like using the word boundary because I actually think that's another false teaching because all boundaries do. That person does not know that you created a boundary against them. They have no idea. All boundaries do is create your own prison. It blocks you in. That's all a boundary is. That's another false teaching. Oh, you should need to set boundaries with that person. That person doesn't know you set a boundary with them. All you did was just imprison yourself. I'm not gonna talk to them, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that. That's you just okay, you just imprisoned yourself. Here's the key.
Yeah.
Okay, toss it, you know? Sorry, I go on
No,
tangent.
I'm glad you brought up the boundaries because I you said that to me, like boundaries just box us in, and that made me think of them in a whole new light. Because I hear so often, this person crossed my boundary, they don't respect me, I need to do something
Mhm.
about it, or this person owes me something, or this person, and it's like at the end of the day, I think a lot of things in our life come back to like taking radical responsibility and like
Absolutely.
that's just such a disempowering place to stand because the outer world can affect you so heavily. And I actually thought about this morning because a friend texted me and she's like, I try not to text you in the morning because we have a time difference. And I'm like, it's on me to like check my phone or not check my phone, or like, you don't have to worry about that. Like, we all just need to structure our lives in a way that suits us, and people are going to be people and do what they do. And it's not personal, it's not a personal like vendetta or
Well, that we should be
negative.
I think we should be asking ourselves, "What is it?" Because I firmly believe that everyone's a mirror. There's
Yes.
something about that person that's mirroring us. So we should, instead of saying, "I'm gonna put B, I'm not gonna let you do that to me. I'm putting up a boundary. I'm gonna do this." Maybe what the person should be doing, and that's why I think it's a false teaching, keep you locked in your own prison, is that you should be asking yourself, "Why is this person being presented to me?" Why what is it that what is this person mirroring to me that I don't like? Because I can guarantee you what that person's mirroring that you don't like is you. There's something
Mm.
about you that you're seeing in that person and that's creating and it's trying to be seen. And I think that another false teaching would be for empaths, people that are empathic and feel energy. It's again, they keep them in a victim. Oh, you're empathic. Oh, wow, you must be really sensitive. Oh, I am so sensitive. Oh, this and that. Cut the shit. Sorry, guys. You know what? What you instead of shielding, oh, I have to shield myself. The energy is so heavy today. Oh God. No. What you should be doing, I'm sorry, I'm balls to the walls, kind of
That's
sometimes known as
bring
Nurse
it.
Ratchet. Known as Nurse Ratchet. Instead of turning around and being like, "Oh, it's so heavy today." No, what you need to do is start deciphering. This is a gift that's being given to empaths. You are being given a, lessons to learn what is yours and what is not. So if you turn around and and go into that victim state, oh, woe is me, the energy is so hard today, it's so heavy. No, you're not going to start. That is huge, huge, huge in our society today that we have to start learning discernment, what is ours and what is not ours, period, in all things. And if an empath just sits there and they just, oh, I'm going to shield myself. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel. No, you should actually be feeling into it and deciding, is that mine? Is that my energy or is that collective? It's lessons. It's lessons for people to start learning and developing their abilities. Um, yeah, sorry, went on.
It's okay, but I love it because it's almost like all of the things are actually, whether they feel hard or challenging or painful or whatever it is, like they're actually here for a greater good
Absolutely.
if we
Absolutely.
can maintain
Perspective.
that.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Society, I do believe society, I think that's I think humanity, there's certain things we have to overcome. There's certain lessons that we have to overcome. And one of them is the victim, because everything we are taught the minute we're born that we're a victim. It's like your parents are making decisions for you as a baby, and then because of their decisions, oh, now you have this or what, everything keeps us in that victim state. And I have to say, when I was going through my divorce, when I would tell people my story, people would be like, "Oh my gosh." And I would end it with, "I'm so thankful for him." If you heard my story, I lost everything. I lost my retirement. I lost a house. I was a sugar mama. I had to pay my ex alimony and child support. And people were like, "Why?" And I lost everything. Literally, I had to go from one job to working three jobs to support his income of what he was used to because that's the rules. And I could have easily gone into that victim. And I did for a while. I did it for about a year where I just went into this woe is me. Oh my God, my life is horrible. And then all of a sudden, I just was like, pulled myself up by my bootstraps and was like, okay, well, what was the meaning about that? Why did that happen? And once you get past the victim state, all of a sudden everything starts to fall into place. Like, oh my gosh, I started learning I didn't need all that. It was actually a blessing. Here, take the house. The house was a burden anyway. The house was full of like dark energies. Like, yeah, take the house. At first I'm like, oh shit, now I'm in this tiny little apartment and I think I can only afford a studio. I'm sleeping on a futon of all things. Like at one point I was sleeping on the floor, but I realized when I pulled myself out of the victim, what a blessing all that was. And I for the first time in my life, I think I was like 48 years old, and I was the most happiest I've ever been. And it was because of all what would have people were like, "Oh my God, must have been horrible and all." And it actually turned out to be the most blessed thing in my life. And it's all about that perspective and pushing past that victim. If we can push past that victim mentality that we're so inundated to be in, we're meant to, and that's I think one of the lessons that a person has to learn is how to not be the victim.
It reminds me of something my mentor says. He says the universe teaches us in two ways. It gives us the carrot or it gives us the stick. If we're not learning a lesson, eventually it's going to give us the stick. And in the moment, you actually have no idea if this is good or bad.
Mhm.
It might feel really bad, but end up being the best thing that ever happened to you. Or it might feel really good and end up being a terrible thing. Like, we do not know. And so when we get caught so much, or we get so caught up in the, why is this happening to me? This is terrible. Like, it's a disservice, and we're creating unnecessary suffering because in the end, like you said, it might be the best thing that ever happened to you. We just don't know. And I think that takes a high level of trust and surrender to know that
Mm.
everything works out in our favor, which is something I'm still trying to figure out for myself. But
That circles me back around to trusting you when you said that because my work depends on me being up here. And when you said I'm going to pull you down, and I'm like, I had to surrender. I'm like, obviously the universe brought you to me. Like there's a reason why we connected together, and it was that trusting. Okay, I have to trust that you know what you are doing here, and yeah, because my ability, I was like, and so I no offense, guys, Lila's using me as a scientific experiment. But anyway, no, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. But,
no, but you fascinate me, so why not?
but I have to say that actually my fear and I just kept thinking, you know what? The universe always gives us what we need. And it's when we resist it that we create our own suffering. That's when we create our own thing. And I knew when I met you, I just had to trust. I'm like, you gave me my whole thing of herbs, and I'm sitting there capsulating the powders, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hope this is right. Oh, okay, I'm gonna trust. I'm gonna trust. I'm just gonna trust. And I'll tell you what, within 3 days, I've never felt that physical presence in my body. I've never felt that anchored in my life. And when you should I don't want this to go into like a vegan and a meat conversation, but when you said to me, and this is why I think we need people that are open, why we need people that have different perspectives, different understandings. Like you pull a collection, like you have the Chinese medicine, the Ayurvedic medicine, and then you, your knowledge base gives you multiple tools, and that's what people need to find. You need to find someone like you that has multiple tools, just like me. My work evolved. I have so many tools in my toolbox. I'm not limited by one, oh, SRT, the spirit release. No, I have multiple tools that I can pull from just like you. And we have that's what I think people need to do. I think they need to find someone like you, like me, that has multiple tools to bring to the table. because not only that, but it allows a different perspective. It's that higher perspective. You've got a bunch of understandings that you can pull from because we're all individuals. We're all different. No one's like no as a nurse, in all my years of nursing, 26 years of it, I learned really quickly that uh-uh, everybody's not like the textbook. I learned that real quick. And if you have someone who's a textbook studier, they're not going to help you. And I'm so appreciative when I'm sitting there, I'm on my herbs and I'm like, oh boy, I don't know how this is going to work out. Woo! My abilities don't go like I'm so used to being up here, but we had an interesting conversation because you asked me about my diet. I gotta tell you, this was mind blowing for me. And this isn't a conversation for vegan guys or meat eaters or anything like that. Everybody's individual, and everybody's body needs certain things. And when we were talking, my husband's name is Dennis, guys, Denise and Dennis. Yeah, the D square.
That's
Anyway,
cute.
oh well, I thought, yeah, I used to be called Dennis as a child all the time by the substitute teachers, and now I actually married a Dennis. Like I'm like, what was I doing? Anyway, so when we were talking about diet, my husband loves to cook red meat. Like he's a very big meat and potato guy. And for me, I spent years with salads, fruits, vegetables. That was my thing. And I found that when I married him and he would cook like red meat like 3 or 4 times a week. And I would be like, he would do like maybe 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row. And I would feel so heavy and bloated afterwards. Like, and I thought, I'm not digesting this. Like, that was the only thing I could think of was that I was struggling to digest. It was too heavy for me. It was too heavy for my energetic body, which I was correct in a way. It was too heavy for my energetic body. But when you turned around and you said, oh gosh, it was actually that food was actually pulling me down and pushing me into that physical presence that presence in my physical body that I was and that's why I was resisting. What I was feeling was the resistance of my energy wanting to remain up here. And that's why that food was so heavy. And that was so mind-blowing for me. It was like a massive aha moment. And, because I would say to Dennis, today I'm just gonna have the next couple days salad and vegetables because I wanted to get out of that uncomfortableness, heavy feeling that I was feeling because for years I've been up here, and that was huge for me. And I never gave that a thought until you said that to me. So, I think having that multiple understandings and the willingness to work with someone like me and think outside the box
Yeah.
was
Well, I
was
love that.
huge.
I love that you're sharing that. And I think just to like clarify for anyone who's interested in that line of thinking of like why we can't live up here with our energy up there is because we need energy going downwards to help
Mhm,
us digest things, to help us eliminate. Like energy flows inward, outward, all around. And if that energy gets disturbed and things aren't flowing correctly, then we're going to have physical challenges that will catch up with us eventually. And I love that you decided to figure out how do I make this sustainable in my body? Because you're such a gift to the world, and the longer that you can do this, the better off the world will be. And a lot of healers and gurus and people that are extremely gifted sometimes really bypass their physical body because they don't need it. They're beyond it. But their physical body still needs to be there to carry them. And if they ignore it, then they won't be able to
yes,
be here giving their gifts as long as they might have otherwise.
mhm, and it goes I think, when you say that, like, a lot of people in the spiritual community think, "Oh, well, I'm doing, the salads, I'm eating vegetables and all," but it goes even deeper than that. It's much more deeper than that to support the physical body. I guess it was like a year ago, and I was being drawn to my physical body. And the work that I do, which I didn't mention already, is that I'm also a vessel. I witness emotions, and Lila knows this about me, but I actually experience other people's emotions and energy through my own physical body. So what I realized was that healers in the past when I started researching what was going on in my body, what was happening, because I had my astrology chart read, and basically it was saying that now I'm a physical vessel, And it really hit me like, oh my God, I need to like I'm a physical vessel of witness. And that really hit home to me that I needed to start addressing my physical body and not just like eating salad or fruit and all that stuff. I need to really support it in what I was doing. I just it was, it can be different healers have been documented that have my abilities that they within 5 years they're crippled. They end up not addressing that physical body, end up with disease, they end up crippled. They within 3 or 5 years. And I didn't want that to be my story. I didn't that's not meant to be my story. So I started doing I didn't even think about your work. I was thinking of chiropractor, massage, acupuncture, releasing things in the physical body. Because for me, we store emotions, we store traumas in our physical body, in our organs, different places. So I was thinking of it like that. I was like, well, I want to move this energy out of my physical body, out of my muscles, out of my fascia. And so I never gave it a thought about supporting the physical body. And when I met you and we started talking and stuff, starting with we decided the Ayurvedic. We went the Ayurvedic route for me, and what a difference now! Like it's been huge, and it goes beyond just people would be like, oh, and the food and what you're, and that is a part of it. And then people think, oh, I'm just gonna get a massage and do lymph node drainage or whatever. But there's so much more. And I didn't
Yeah.
know it until I met you. And then and then having that physical feeling within like a couple of days, that changed. It was drastic. It was huge. And I want people that are intuitive or empathic, people that like me that live up here, to start understanding that there's way more than breath work, there's way more than meditation, there's way more than visualizing grounding and all. You have because what also was happening was during that psychic attack, it was what we call a backdoor entrance. So I could shield myself as much as I wanted to. I kept thinking, well, there must be an unresolved trauma that this energy is being able to come into. And I kept sitting on it, nothing would come through. And I'm like, what is this backdoor entrance? Well, the back door was my own physical body. Because as you said, when you said the physical boundary, all of a sudden I saw the back door. I said, oh my God, that was the back door. I didn't have the presence in my physical body. I didn't create a presence in it. And that's huge because in the spiritual community, people talk about shielding your energetic body. Oh, shield your physical. Just visualize a shield around you, white light or violet flame, whatever you resonate with. But that doesn't you're not really addressing that. You're not really creating and I do think that going back to our conversation earlier about like how we're pulled in, to live in the past and the future, but not in the present. I think that's another way of keeping us out of, away from creating that. I just want to say presence in the physical body. That's all I could. I've how it, I see it. It's like creating that presence. Um. So yeah. I'll stop my rant now. Go ahead.
It's so fun to hear those things kind of like mirrored back to me because I feel very blessed that I get to like sit with my 1,000-foot view and like put all the pieces together, and I have just had like the right knowledge come to me that allows me to put together these pieces and look at a picture like yours differently than I think a lot of other people would. And it's so interesting how it all fits together, and I've just it's cool. Like it's still like I still get giddy when I hear or talk to clients like these things and how they work and how they impact them. And even the act of, you decided to capsulate all your herbs. Like even the act of taking the time to capsulate the herbs, which is, it's a pain. That probably took you hours.
Oh my gosh. You don't
I
even
I
want
I,
we
I
don't
knew
even want
you
to go there. We don't even that ashwagandha, 20 capsules a day. Holy crap.
well
Yeah. That's
I knew
that's
you
what
I
I'm
knew
doing in the next hour or two when we get done this call. I'm making
that's so
capsules.
funny. I knew you were in for it when you're like, I'm going to encapsulate myself, but I love it because it like forces us, like even the act of taking herbs in the way that I have people take herbs, like forces us to spend time and dedicate ourselves to something that's going to heal our bodies. And it just starts getting us more in tune, right? It's not like, oh, I'm taking a pill from an orange bottle. I have no idea what it does. Like you are communing with a thing that's going to help you and you are forced to like spend time with it, which I love.
Exactly. I can't tell you as a nurse how many people, like when I did triage, people would be like, "Yeah, I take a white pill for my heart." Okay, that's how dedicated you are to your own body. You don't even know what you're putting in your body. Like you don't even know. And I agree with you. I think that's so important to create that process because we, like you mentioned earlier, we have to we when we were talking about the boundaries, we have to start stepping up and taking responsibility for ourselves. And,
Mm-hmm.
I went to you and you handed me the list and I'm so thankful you ordered the herbs. Thank you very much. Um, but I had to take responsibility in some way. I had to show myself that, hey, I'm in this. I'm in this. I'm in this to my help me. Like if you were to look at your physical body, it was like almost like a conversation. I'm here to help. I'm dedicated, and by doing the encapsulating too, is like I'm putting my own intention into it because I want it's not a machine that's encapsulating powder and then creating capsules, blah blah blah. I'm actually setting the energies of those capsules of self love, and that's one of the things that again we lack as humans self love
Mm-hmm. Well,
and Go
oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, you go, you go.
No, but it was I feel like so it was not only creating self-love, but again, that responsibility. I can't just, oh, here's the remedies and I take that. That's a quick fix. That's what we want to do in society. We want to just a quick fix here. Just tell me what I need, Myra. Just give it to me. Just give it to me. I'll just take it. There's
Mm-hmm.
no connection to it. So you're not healing is multiple layers, and one of those layers is the responsibility of self. Grabbing the reins and saying, "Okay, I need to figure this shit out." Like people go to doctors and they're like, "Heal me. Tell me what's wrong with me." Rather than sitting with that pain in your back or your shoulder and saying, "Well, what is this coming from? What is
Mm-hmm.
this coming from? Why do I have this pain in my shoulder?" And the universe works like very softly. Like if you were to sit with your pain, if you sat with it and allowed the key to my world, this is gonna get a little woo woo on here, is imagination. And again, not the false teaching, but I remember as a kid, my parents always saying, it used to be in the sci-fi stuff. You're living in a fantasy world, in the real world. And I was like, and something we tell children all the time. And we wonder why children lose their abilities to see the other side. Is because we turn around and we teach them, get out of, that's not reality. This is reality. When actually that's the reality. That's the key to our reality, our unseen world, is through the imagination. So if you sit with a pain, if you have a pain in your shoulder, and you sit with it, just even just a few minutes, and just ask, show me why I have this pain, and shut the brain off as much as you can, and just watch what comes through. If you have an image, say you get an image of your mother. Oh, it's my mom. I'm taking a burden on. That's why my shoulder's hurting. Oh wow, yeah, it's been a rough week with her. She has dementia. I've been, having to take care of her. Oh wow, that's where that pain's coming from. Now you understand. We're still thinking that it's oh physical, but for me, when stuff starts to present in the physical body, it's because it was already there. It's like a tooth decay, like a cavity. It starts out as a tartar. When you have something that happens in your energetic body, and if you don't address it, eventually it works its way into that physical. And you start experiencing the pain or the disease or whatever happens. But um, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I think from a very young age, we are taught to outsource so much, right? Like our entire Western medical model, we are outsourcing our health. We are giving up our power. I mean, I just talked to my sister recently about she had 4 home births, and we were kind of comparing the home birth process to the hospital birth process. And you are absolutely like giving up every ounce of power you have as a woman when you have birth in a
Absolutely. I
hospital.
did labor and delivery for 13 years. Absolutely.
Oh, and
Absolutely.
it's like, so and I think your work kind of crosses on this too. How do we get people to take responsibility and get involved in the process? Because that's, I think, the only way to get through and to really like free yourselves of your ailments. And I really do think all disease is spiritual in nature. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, you have a disease, it's your fault. But a lot of disease and states of ailment and symptoms come from crimes against our own wisdom, doing things repetitively we know we shouldn't, whether we're, drinking or eating things we shouldn't, or not nourishing our bodies, or, maybe there's a karmic element, or we are paying for some generational things. But when we look at it, it all comes back to a spiritual meaning. And luckily we can influence the physical body pretty easily. And that kind of can mirror and start the process to healing the spiritual body. But everything comes back to,
I think you're right. I think we do. I think the biggest culprit is self-betrayal.
well, yes. And you talked earlier about, and I wanted to close the loop on this, the separation between the mind and the heart. And I think we are living in a society that is so, like, we prize the smart people. We prize the developers. We prize the economic leaders and all these people that are really stuck in their head, but they're not leading from their heart. And that divide between the head and the heart causes so many issues, like so many issues.
Yeah, I find that a lot of my clients. So for me, how I look at things is I tell my so when you're being created and you're in the womb space, the first thing that's created is your heart, then your spinal cord, and then the brain. So why do we allow the brain, which was the third thing created, to rule us and not the heart? And I always tell people that the heart will never steer you wrong. The heart is your first thought. So if I said, "Hey, Lila, let's go to a concert," and you're like, "Yes, let's go." And then 15, 20 minutes later, I get a text from you, and you're like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not quite feeling," because all of a sudden you're thinking about, it and you're like, "Oh, maybe this will happen. Oh, I don't really like that area." Blah 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 blah. That's the brain. Anytime there's fear or anxiety with your decisions, it's the brain. It's the brain. The heart will never steer you wrong. Um,
Yeah.
it was, I was listening to your video, you did Valentine's Day. You did
Oh,
the heart.
yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I listened to it and I thought that was, had some really interesting information in it as well. But I wanted to say that, coming from the sound healing perspective was they're doing studies where they actually believe that the heart, the lub dub, the sound of the heart creates the frequency that binds the oxygen to the hemoglobin, and that the reason why we die, in a sense, people are like, because the heart stops working, stops pumping, right? But it's actually because the sound of the lub dub is no longer there. And it's
Mm.
the frequency of the sound of the lub dub that binds the oxygen to hemoglobin. That's what we die from, because it's no longer making that sound. And I was just like, "Whoa, how interesting. How interesting is that?" So, yeah, it's really fascinating to me. Because I think
That's
Rudolf
super
Steiner,
interesting.
he talks about the heart as not being like, he talks about it's more than just a pump. Like, it's way more than just, yeah, and so that's why I was taking this class, and when he said that to me, and I thought, "Oh, sound. Wow, that's so interesting." That's something I hadn't heard from anybody before. I think it's a study in Europe or China. The gentleman, um, one of the gentlemen's was, I think it was Asian, and then it was on Sounds True, one of their classes, semantics, and they talked about that. I thought that was really interesting as well.
I talked about in the video, traditional Chinese medicine sees the heart as the emperor, the ruler, the governor. That's what should be in charge. So does Ayurveda. That's our seat of consciousness. There's this nectar that it's called ojas, and that's our life juice. And when that juice runs out, we are dead, and that lives in our heart. Yeah, I think that we've really westernized our view of the heart, and we see it as a pump that it's a muscle that pumps blood throughout the body. We've totally discounted all of the ways that our heart really keeps us in our power. And whether that's by default or design in our current society.
Exactly
Um,
right.
I think it needs so much more attention, because we need people to come out of their heads and into their hearts. That's how the world becomes a better place. That's how we become better. That's how we find our peace and our happiness, and I think our health. Because if you're trying to think your way out of a situation, like, you're never gonna do it. Like, you're never gonna be able
Never.
to use the brain to fix your life because your brain probably got you in all of your fear and anxieties in the first place.
Exactly. 100% done.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I think a lot of people with migraines and chronic migraines, it's actually, I noticed with my sister, she has migraines all the time. And I think it's that tugging of the heart and the brain. It's like they
Mhm.
know in their heart. Like my sister will mull over something and she'll just keep thinking about something. And the answer is right there. She has the answer. And then she throws herself into a migraine and she's like, why do I keep getting a migraine? Why is this happening? And I'm like, because you're sitting there, you already know the answer, but you're mulling it over. You're mulling it
Mhm.
over. And you're doing this tug of war within the brain and the heart. So yeah, of course you're having a migraine right now because the brain's trying to win.
Yep, yep.
No, brain's trying to win it,
I
but
have a question that's a little bit in a different direction. Sound healing has come up a couple times. I know there's a lot of studios and places you can go get sound healing at, and I'm curious, is it possible to get bad sound healing or negative sound healing? I think there's a lot of people in the health and wellness and spiritual space that I wouldn't say they're ill intent, but they're maybe not as
their intentions aren't pure. How's
yes, yeah, thank you. And
yeah,
so, like,
yeah.
I get a little bit say is I get a little bit apprehensive about engaging in those kinds of activities, because I think they've become really westernized and commercialized, and they've lost some of their purity. So, do you have any recommendations or advice for, like, seeking that kind of healing out?
My first one would be if it's expensive, don't go. Okay?
Love it.
Because when you if a sound healer, okay, God, this is my other peeve. Here we go. Okay. I'm gonna rant and rave on this one. Okay. Whenever you attach monetary gain to any kind of healing, it is no longer heart centered. Healing, in order to receive true healing, it must come from the heart. If someone's charging $3,000 for a weekend or $5,000 for a retreat, I'm going to tell you right now, the energy of money is negative. So all you're getting from that retreat is negative energy. So basically, that person's intention is to make money. Their intention is not to heal you. I shouldn't say, I shouldn't say that. I should say their bottom line, their basic reason for doing it is to put money in their pocket. Then the next one is, yeah, I want to help people. Well, if you really wanted to help people, you wouldn't make it so expensive that everyone couldn't go. And I know this is going to piss off people. I've been yelled at by viewers because I'm like, no, there's no reason to charge $500 or $300 for a session when this person can do it themselves. So they're just not aware that they can do it
Mhm.
themselves. So, intention is really important. A lot of these sound healers, when you bring that up, sound is pretty much, yeah, there's certain frequencies that can misalign us. I don't know if people realize it's not our ears that are hearing organs. It's our skin. And that's why those sound baths work. Is because it's through the skin. We're actually absorbing all the sounds through the skin, and that's why it's such a healing for us. But it's the intention of that person. If they're ego driven, if it's monetary gain, that intention of that session has changed, and now you're taking in that energy. And there's a lot of healers in this community that it's all about money. It's not really about the person. And it my thumbs up. Oh
It
yes, you heard
agrees.
it agrees with me. Um, so that's another peeve of mine because I feel like the spiritual community has been infiltrated by false healers.
Yeah.
Healers who want to make money. And true healing must be in order for it to be hard. So people associate, I think the Reiki master, I don't remember his name now. A lot of people will use that. He said that there has to be an equal energy exchange. And he came down from the village. He worked on these people and then went back to the village and saw like 6 months later, like the people were back to being the way they were. And he said it was because they didn't take responsibility for their healing. There wasn't an equal energy exchange. Well, we have twisted that to mean money. And whenever I sit with a client, my equal energy exchange is that aha moment where I recognize something in myself. That's the equal energy exchange. That's what it's about. Is if I grow every time I'm with a client. Not only is my client growing, but I'm growing as well. And that's how it should be. It shouldn't be about money. It shouldn't be about and I think when we talk about responsibility as well, yes, people, when we do our work and we release these entities and we release these things that people have been dealing with for years, they also have a responsibility to step up to the plate and not continue their addiction, like their habits that led to that addiction or whatever. And what we find is those that don't, and this is what I think he was probably seeing when the master came down, was that it was people just, oh, thanks. Thanks for taking care of that for me. Okay. And they
Mm-hmm.
never changed their behavior. And it's that I think is another thing with the healing world too, is that I can go in and I can work on someone and I can remove it. But if you're not going to step up to the plate and continue to work on things, it's going to come back because you obviously didn't learn the lesson. So
Yeah.
whatever it was that we released is going to come back to you. And so going in with a healer, again, it's that quick fix. We've gone into the healing world of, hey, I want a sound bath because I'm feeling a little wonky and my nervous system needs to be reset, which is great. But you should be asking yourself, why is my nervous system so jacked?
Yeah.
Why is it jacked? Why do I even need a sound bath? Every once in a while, yeah, just to treat myself, like, oh. But if you're continuously in that, adrenal stress, you need to ask yourself, why? What am I doing? Why just anyway? That's me.
No,
I
I
could
love
go on.
that. Well, and that kind of reminds me of the work I do because I will, I'll treat symptoms to get people relief so they have space to do the bigger work, to even look at, why my nervous system is out of whack. And I think that's maybe something sound baths could be used for, like to give yourself a break to do the
Yeah.
deeper work. Because if you're so in the thick of it, it's really hard to make changes. I'm gonna put you on the spot here a little bit because I charge for my services and I'm curious what your thoughts are. I mean, this is 100% the work I would be doing if I would do it for free. And I do a lot of pro bono work. Like I take a lot of people on for free, but at the same time, like there's a level of I know my needs have to be met in order to be and hold the space for people in the way that I do. So is there a way to have monetary exchange and keep it pure, or does it totally muddy the waters no matter
Ugh,
what?
this is something I'm dealing with right now. Because all our work is donational. And a lot of our clients have not. We don't receive anything. My husband laughs at me. He's like, "You can't even call it a business, Denise." He's like, "Wow, because our work is donational. We're trying to. One of the girls, she left her business. She had her own business and all. Now she's wrestling with that. She has to put. She needs money to come in. So for me." Um, for me, I can't. The work that I do, my work has to remain donational. It has to be that way. If it's, I've done where people leave me a review. That's an equal energy exchange for me. That tells
Mhm.
that, maybe there's someone else that's going through something and reading that review may help them. So it's like passing it forward kind of thing. I think I actually, you know, I think you're great. And I think someone like you, like what you charge, would be some people would charge way more for what you
Yeah.
offer.
Yeah.
And the fact that you don't charge through, through the ass, so to speak. Um sorry guys. Um is but you also, I know, because 'cause you've done it for me with my group, if I've asked you to do a Q&A for come on, and you came on, and there's no expectation, we never discussed any monetary, you were like, "Yeah, I'll come in and share my knowledge," and that tells me that the work that you do is in the heart, because you know what? You're like there was again, not that I was testing you. I do that to people. I do that to people. But
That's
we never
funny.
even that was never even a conversation. And that tells me that you're centered, you're heart centered. You're not doing it because there's a part of you that loves humanity and you want to be of service. If you had turned around and said, "Yeah, I'll do your Q&A, but, hey, I wanna be paid for my time, and I'm thinking maybe, whatever, 100, $200 for that, blah, blah, blah." I would have been like, "Well, this is not how it's done.
Yeah.
I'm not this isn't a fit for me."
Yeah.
So so yeah, I mean, you came on and you answered a lot of questions and with no anticipation or just you just put yourself out there and that told me that your work is centered in the heart.
Are
So
you kidding? I love talking about what I do. Like, it is a treat to get in to have a platform to talk about these things because, like, they like I could tear up right now because it tugs at something in me, and I almost find it unfortunate that like there does have to be a business component, but for me, I know that piece has to be there. Like, I think that's part of how
it
I
has to be.
grow
I
my
think
authority. But
Yeah, I think eventually, I don't know if you and I will see it in our lifetimes. I think we're eventually going into more of a community. The bartering system's going to come back where people start to barter. I think that if, I love the government here. What's the
mm,
three things they do? They create a problem, then they provide a need, and then they provide the answer or something. What's the three something, whatever it is. And I just was listening to someone and they mentioned that be very wary the next few years. If they give us a big overall plan, here you go, that's going to save us, right? Um, I think we need to focus more on smaller communities. I think people need to start developing these smaller communities of of the bartering. Okay, helping going back to the I'm in need of this. Can you help me in here? I'm gonna give you yeah, you might talk to them for a half hours and they show up in your doorstep with a loaf of sourdough bread. I mean, that's love. That's
yeah,
pure love, that's they're giving you something back. I and this is what makes me believe in humanity. There are times when I look at the evils in the world and my unseen world and stuff, and I think, gosh darn, do we have hope? Is there hope for us? And I was at a travel stop. I was at a Love's travel stop one day, and I was getting a soda, iced tea, whatever it was, and there was this gentleman there, little Mexican guy, and he's getting his hot dog and he's getting his soda too, and he beat me to the register. So he's standing there, and I turn around and I said, "I got him," and the cashier was like, "What?" And he turns around to me because I don't think he quite understood the barrier, the language, and, she's like, "What?" And I said, "I'm paying for it. I'm paying his lunch." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she told him, "No, no, bye." And he looked at me, totally surprised, and I walk out to my car, and all of a sudden I hear someone yelling, and I'm looking around, and it's him, and he's bringing me a bag of oranges.
aw,
Fresh oranges. Oh my god, my car. I have never smelled oranges so fragrant. But that energy of exchange, that those oranges, because of the intention was of helping someone else, it changed the whole intention of that fruit. I'll tell you,
mm-hmm,
that was the best glass of orange juice I have ever tasted. I was because it was an exchange. It was a, oh my gosh, you helped me, I'm gonna help you. And that changes the energy of so much things. And I think that we have to go back to that and offering that and people that are very rigid and are like, no, it's this price, it's that, even classes and stuff like that. I'm finding that there's so much going into classes, even people teaching things and they're charging an arm and a leg. And someone said to me, I asked him, well, how they were putting together a class, and I said, well, how much? What are you going to charge for? Is it going to be donational, or is it? And they said, well, I want people to take it seriously, which meant they felt that for people to take it seriously, it had to have dollar signs attached to it.
mm,
And in the next breath, they're like, oh, but I want everyone to be able to 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 do it. And it was like, no, it's something within you thinks that the higher the price, the more value it is. And that's where society, people, we have to stop doing that. Just because someone charges $3,000 for something and they make all these promises of a amazing spiritual, you're going to collapse timelines and you're going to collapse karma all within a freaking weekend. Woo! Okay, let's sign me up right now. $3,000 and you're going to do it for me?
yep,
No, that's not how the spiritual community works. You have to experience and process it. You have to. I think Ayurvedic, Eastern, I think all of them talk about that. There's no quick thing. And again, it's that, yeah, I'm going on a tangent. Sorry.
Although you just made me think Ayurveda has a saying that's the best customer is a rich one because they can afford the good medicine.
Of course there's
It's
always
so
that.
funny.
But
No, I know, but oh, you're bringing up so much for me. I think that's one reason that I really respect you, because you are doing such heart-centered work, and I know you don't pay for your work, and you could easily charge a lot for the work you do. Like, I've seen it firsthand, and I think all of the people that I choose to listen to on a spiritual level are people that haven't sold out, and
that's what it is.
it's so tempting, right? Like, it's so tempting, and that's something I've had to really evaluate for myself as I price myself, as I worry about the money component, is what is enough. And I've completely downsized my life in the last 5 years. Like,
I know.
my life fits into a car. I have an office now, and it's grown a little bit, but like, what is enough? And I think that's the question that we all have to sit and really wrestle with. Like, trust and surrender, our needs will get met even if we're not quote unquote charging our worth. Or my sister's always like, you are so undercharging, like your packages should be thousands of dollars for someone to get to work with you. And I was like, no, like it doesn't sit right with me, and it alienates the population I want to work with.
Well, I think that the word abundance has gotten lost. And true abundance is having everything you need in that moment. Your belly's full, you have a warm place, a roof over your head. That's true abundance. And I was like you. That's why I say my divorce was the best thing that happened to me, because at a certain point, I was building trails in Washington State, and I decided, I was working on, my friend said, I hated crawling into Pacific Northwest. It rains all the time, and we would go through like 5 different weather systems in 2 hours, and I would be in a weekend working on these trails, and I would crawl into a tent that was already wet. I'm sitting in wet clothes, and just, and my muscles would cramp during the night, and I'd be like, why am I doing this again? To be out in nature. Oh yeah. Fun part. Oh yeah, I'm freezing my ass off right now, and my bones are all fat. My muscles are spazzing. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm doing this for fun. Okay, like connection. Anyway, but my friend suggested I get an Astro van, and he's like, fine one with all-wheel drive, and then you can have a warm place to be. So I found an Astro van, and I actually gutted the thing, and I'm working on it. And I thought, shit, why am I paying $1,800 a month for a 1-bedroom studio? Not even a bedroom. And I thought, I'm going to give myself 3 months. I'm going to put everything in my storage unit. I'm going to see if I can do it. And I revisited it. I threw everything in the storage unit. I was houseless. I didn't call myself homeless. I called myself houseless, because you just don't have a house. That's it. You're not homeless, but you don't have a house. And I got done after 3 months, revisited it. I went and gave away everything in my storage unit. I had 4 pairs of clothes, a dog, and that was pretty much it. Oh, and a gym membership so I could shower. That was important. And other than that, I was the happiest person I'd ever been. I didn't have, and now that I'm married, we had 2 houses, and it was like all of a sudden I went from having nothing to what people would be like, "Oh my God, Denise, your life is freaking amazing." Like, how wow. And for me, it anchored me. All this stuff that we have just anchors us. It just anchors us and keeps us from moving forward from anything. And it actually, I think that everything holds energy. This book holds energy. So the more you surround yourself with stuff, that it just hangs there. That's that
Mm-hmm.
weight that people feel on them subconsciously, and they aren't even aware of it. And that's why it's so freeing when you get rid of it. You're just like, wow, I didn't. That's that saying, the weight on your shoulders. When you release it, you get rid
Yeah.
of the stuff. That weight lifts, and you're like, wow, I didn't realize I was so weighed down by it, because it's all energy. It's all on.
Well, and the way, so I'm gonna take it back to like the way Ayurveda looks at having things. It's not unrighteous to have things. It's not unrighteous to have money, but everything you own takes a little piece of your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's you know, if you only need one car and you have two cars, both of those cars take some of your energy. And when your energy starts going out to too many places and it starts costing you your peace, that's when it becomes a problem. So you can have as
Yeah.
many things as you want as long as it doesn't take too much energy and it doesn't cost you your peace. Because, you know, two cars, that's double the uptake, double the
Earth.
money, double the insurance, double the worrying about, you know, is my car going to get scratched? Like, you're just magnifying the energy going out to it. So
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's I like that.
I
I
like that
like
too.
I like that.
That really like, just like, you know, when some things just click and resonate, that really clicked and resonated
Oh
with me.
yeah, that and I think that way you just the way they describe it is easy for people to understand it. You
Yeah.
know, like that concept, like when you just said that about two cars, immediately I was like, oh shit, yeah, you're paying double insurance, you're paying double gas, you're now doing maintenance work for two vehicles instead of one. So that makes it I love um that message from the Ayurveda community. That's so
Yeah.
true. So true. Yeah.
I think we're coming up at time soon, but I want to ask you one last question. I'm torn between what question I want to ask you. Um, I'm like, can I combine them and ask them both? But like one, my question, okay, I'm gonna combine them. So do with this what you will.
Okay. Okay.
Um, do you think that everybody has abilities or powers they can tap into that would help make their life a better place? And I want to ask that in the context of I think the world feels really heavy right now for a lot of people, especially people that concern themselves with the news and the happenings and are, you know, open to the collective energies, and things can feel really, really trying right now. And I do think we're in a very trying era in civilization. Um, so is there things that people can like foster within themselves that help, or is it best to like work with someone like you? I'm curious how we can use this other world to help ourselves on our journey to finding our peace.
Ah, wow, that's a deep
So-
topic. That's a really deep topic because gosh, that can go in so many different ways. I actually see like a part two here happening.
oh yeah.
I think we do a part two. I used to wonder why was 2030 such a big agenda for a certain group of people, and I just discovered there's a massive conjunction that's happening that is
Mm.
80s and Chronos. Not oh, girl, we got to talk anyway.
Uh-oh.
But the thing that I mean, okay, in answer to your first call, like the beginning of the question, I think we all of us have the same abilities. We all have abilities. Question is, are we aware of them and are they activated? And do we even think we have them? Because there's people that are so brainwashed. My husband will say to me, "Oh, you're just gifted. I could never do that." And I look at him, I'm like, "No, you can do exactly what I do as well." Like this, but I do think that there is certain abilities that we come in with that are already, I don't like to use the word woken up, activated. Maybe activated would be the better words. And I find that the more spiritual work you do, the more you create that presence within you, spiritually, energetically, physically, you just start to discover more and more of your abilities. Actually, the one ability that people don't give credit to because we live in a world that is material. Everyone thinks clairvoyant, which is seeing, and clairaudience are the two main clairs, and they're actually not. It's actually clairsentiments, which is the knowing, which brings us back into our gut. And it's that gut knowing that you know what? I'm not gonna make that turn. I'm gonna keep going straight. And then you find out an accident happened. So people they just have to listen to it. The clear sentience, the knowing is one of the strongest clairs we have. And if you look at like what society is doing today, energy drinks, chemicals, I think actually people go immediately in my community, they talk about the pineal gland, it's the calcifying it, they're doing this. I would disagree with them. I would actually say no, what they're actually doing is blocking your nose. Because how many people do you know, I'm seeing everyone in the work, have gut issues?
Everyone.
Right.
Everyone.
And where's your gut instinct located? Because that's what we say. I have this gut instinct. I shouldn't do that because that's your knowing. That's where your knowing is. So all what people say like about these the sweeteners and all this stuff, I actually people immediately think of the pineal gland but I actually think it's to attack the knowing in us. Because once we lose that knowing, that ability just to have, that's our first level of defense. That knowing something doesn't feel right. I don't know. I don't know. What is that? Once we lose that, how are we going to tell what's right or wrong? How are we going to know? How are we going to navigate this world without that knowing that we all take for granted, that we all we use every single day, you know? Um I would be mindful of people's thoughts. Again, I feel like it could be a part two if we got into egregores, or tulpas and things like that.
Yes.
Our thoughts are so important. There's a thought, no pun intended, there's a thought out there that all of our thoughts go into our aura. So we have different layers. We have like an aura field around us, and that all of our thoughts go into this aura field, and that there's beings that will grab that thought and actually start to give it form. And that's where you start to get beings that manipulate you, like like making you angry, making you anxious, making you, sad, making you depressed. Um, so short answer to, and this could be a long conversation, but a short answer would be I'd be mindful of people's thoughts. Like, don't go down the rabbit hole of my dark thoughts. If anything, look at it and say to yourself, well, why is this happening? Take yourself out of the emotions. That's the thing. If they play on we have to pull away from that and look at it from a different perspective. I think you and I talked about why was this all happening, not to get political, but with what's currently happening. And that's because we need that imbalance. We need that imbalance of we're kind of living in a dictatorship right now. And I never in my life would ever have thought America would be this way, right? Where the people don't even have a say. But what we're doing is we're, not to get too political, we're in balance right now. But we need that imbalance in order for people to start understanding what it is we want. What do we want? Do we want to remain in a government or a society that tells us how we should act, behave, work, all that stuff? Or do we want to finally say, enough, this is what we really want? And so we need that. So if you look at what's happening in our world today with that kind of perspective and take out the emotional piece of it and understand that I'm a firm believer the universe doesn't allow bad things to happen. People would say, "Oh, but this person got murdered and that was horrible and all that." And it's like, but what was the main reason for that? What was that? What was that about? Stop taking the emotions, because we do a lot of transference. We do a lot of transferring our own emotions onto things on other people and things like that. And our own judgment. Judgment is huge. We're not meant here to judge. So I think if people can keep themselves, don't get mirrored in the muck. And I know this is easy to say, but my husband is constantly on his phone, YouTubing. If I walk down and hear one more person talking about da 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 da, da, I'm like, I just immediately go back up the stairs and I'm like, oh God. Um, but I think that if you start looking at it, going back to Steiner, creating a different understanding, why is this happening? Look above it. You're going to start to see it. This has to happen in order for us to decide what we want. And once I realize that, I don't get involved anymore because I know what I want. I know what I want. So I don't even have to listen to this anymore because I know what I want and I know what I want to create. So it doesn't even affect me anymore. Um, but that, I don't know if that answered your question or not. Simply anyway. I mean,
Well,
there's way more we could have gone into, but
I would say it answers my
yeah.
question that we need to probably have more conversations because I think there's just like so much that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, and I do think that there is a correlation in all of this. I think that's the missing key in Western medicine. And I think that you have to combine the etheric body, you have to work with the etheric and the physical. And in Western medicine, we only work with the physical. But when you start working with the etheric body and the unseen part, the unseen world that affects us every single day, now you're starting to create the full understanding of the language of the physical body. You're now understanding the language of the physical body. So
Well,
yeah,
that's
I think it's
what
needed.
100%. Well, that's what I love about Ayurveda is it takes them all into consideration, and it's not
Mhm.
just we're not just looking at things in a vacuum, and it's, to me, the most complete medical system out there because it looks at all of it, and now I'm just thinking about why it was kind of
Dampened,
Ste exactly.
pushed
Now yeah,
away.
now my little conspiracy theorist hat's coming on.
Do you need a tinfoil hat? Should I make you
Oh,
a tinfoil hat here?
I'm a tinfoil hatter. I mean, it's only a conspiracy theory till it's true, right?
Right, exactly, exactly, yeah.
So
But I agree with you, like, and I think that if we look at society, I mean, I actually was listening to someone the other day, 2 people, Carolyn Mace and Robert Holden, and they were talking about how the word soul is being taken out of the Bible.
mm,
And how can we find ourselves if we don't even believe we have a soul? If we lose the word soul, that's a huge, huge thing for us if we allow
oh,
that to
interesting.
happen.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So conspiracy rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, we'll have to
But
give yeah, part 2.
part two, that's right, part two.
Well,
That's yeah.
thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Is there anything that you wanna plug or promote? Am I able to share your website and work for
You can
people
put
if you want?
yeah, you can put my website in the comments or down, in your description. Yeah, it's onejourney.me. All our work is donational. Like I said, we're usually the ones that people go to when all else fails.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can't really explain our work because everyone's individual and every session is different. You never know what the story is going to be or what's going to come through. Yeah, if you're dealing with something that you shouldn't be having anxiety for six, 16 years, there's something there. There's something that is around you or um 'cause I hate to say it, that's not how our world operates. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
depressed for years on it, and you shouldn't there's other things that are not addressed, and there's a reason for that, but again, that's another one that I could get into some darker stuff, the reasons for that. But yeah, if we start addressing the unseen world.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
I think just reading through your website, there's a lot of healing information. And just being in your energy, I feel like is healing in itself. And I actually after hanging out with you, like I feel like my abilities are sharpened. And I don't know what that is, but I've noticed. So I'm
actually, you hit on something. Well, that's why back in the day, psychics would hold seances with multiple psychics because it enhanced your abilities, it
mm,
strengthened them. And then, too, is like if you are with someone who is a medium or a psychic, um, their energy will start to awaken the energies in others as well. And that brings you to the Kundalini, where if you have a healer, going back to when something's bad, or whatever, if you have a healer that's Kundalini, and they're resisting their Kundalini opening because Kundalini is like she's
mhm.
there. She is you need to face a lot of when Kundalini rises, wow. And people don't there's a lot of healers even who don't want to do it. They're scared. It's fear. You're like, no, I'm gonna stifle my Kundalini as long as I can. But what happens is so they have this chaotic energy in their energy and they go to work on you. What do you think they're gonna do to your Kundalini? If you're not ready for it, your Kundalini could blow open and now you could go into psychosis.
Yep.
So we could go into that about healers too. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation that you could end up in psychosis. These people are doing these retreats and doing these, ayahuasca plants and stuff like that. Be ready. If you blow open your Kundalini and you're not ready for it, you could end up in a mental facility.
You can end up
And
shattered. Oh yeah.
yeah, you'll shatter yourself. So, yeah, gosh darn, there's so much we could bring to
I
talk.
know, I know, I know.
But yeah,
We'll be back. We're gonna
we'll
have
be
to find
back.
more ways to talk because I think that there's just so much good stuff here.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. That's being around someone, it will start to sharpen or bring awareness or awaken as well. So
Yeah.
yes. Anyway.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
you.
welcome. It's been a pleasure, as always. I feel like we could always do think we should just keep, I think people don't realize, but we actually, when we were talking about doing this, we talked like 2 hours and we were
I
like,
know.
We should have hit the record button.
We finally hit it though, so.
Yeah, that's right. We did. We did. So it's been
All
a
right.
pleasure.
I'll see you guys next time. Bye.